everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope your week is off to a great start. This is going to be a advanced peek at this upcoming full moon in Gemini. I'm titling this video Lost in Translation. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed. It really helps the channel algorithms, and make sure you drop me a comment or a thumbs up below and let me know what you think about this upcoming lunation. Also, for those of you guys who are interested, I teach tarot and astrology. You can find all sorts of courses and astrology calendars and much more, including my personal one-on-one sessions on my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. All right, so guys, I really wanted to do this video before Mercury got into Sagittarius, and it got away from me with the content schedule. So some of you guys might already be seeing some of these squares playing out in the world. But this full moon in Gemini is coming in hot on the 27th of November, 2023. And that will be taking place at 3:00 a.m. Central Time. So that means it's going to be happening at 1:16 a.m. Pacific, and that's going to be 4:16 a.m. on the Eastern Standard Time. Obviously, adjust your time zones depending on where you guys live. But this is one that you're probably going to be feeling, I would say, the day before, 26th, 27th, 28th, quite an active full moon. Now, full moon in Gemini brings basically a completion of energies within the Gemini portion of your chart. So you want to take a look at your chart. You want to see which house Gemini falls in. And I'm going to give you guys a laundry list of things that we may be experiencing with this particular full moon. As expected with a Gemini full moon, which has a lot of duality, there can be a sense of being two options or two decisions or being at a crossroads, having to pick one. This is a rather confusing lunation for a number of reasons. And I almost titled this video Clown World. Probably you'll end up seeing me as a clown on the, on the thumbnail, because it's just, yeah, this particular full moon is going to be a bit of a doozy. And so we have a full moon once every 28 days. This is when the sun comes into opposition with the moon. So that opposition is that 180 degree, fun zone of having to kind of deal with other people, other situations, and things kind of coming to a head. Now, this particular full moon is a full moon that was seeded back in the day. It was like back in June 17th, 2023, 6 months ago. We will take a look at that, but just as like a mental note, think about what you were setting intentions for, what you were manifesting this previous summer. And that's also an equally confusing lunation. And so it almost feels like they're like mirroring each other in some strange way. Anyway, I'll show you in a second. But yeah, I wanted to title this Clown World, and I was just like, no, that's probably not a good idea, because you're going to get a lot of people with mutables that are going to be like, welcome to my life all the time. I don't know. Let me know. I could not imagine having this many mutable squares in my chart. But if you have them, or if you were born under some similar complex mutable squares, please bestow upon everybody in the comment section your recommendations and how to better deal with reality. So this is going to be on the 27th of November, 2023, and we're going to see the full moon in Gemini at 4 degrees. So it's in opposition to the sun at 4 degrees. I'd like to start by reading you guys the Sabian symbol for, we're going to read 5, so we're going to round up because it's almost 5 degrees. And this is going to be, if you have the Sabian symbol book, page 97. Gemini 5, a radical magazine. The keyword is tangency, and the theme is personal statements. P.S. Okay, I read this. Not often do I read this before I get on the video, but I read this and my jaw dropped. So if there's any takeaway from this entire video, especially if you're somebody who is not totally fond of the Sabian symbols, or maybe you don't feel like they translate well, or you don't understand them, the name of the game of this whole full moon is like, I don't understand, I can't get it. This encapsulates the entire full moon. So really, really, really listen. The symbol speaks to the dramatic changes that can occur in life with the arrival of unexpected things or events that are needed for deepening of understanding or for learning a valuable lesson through some new experience. The symbol also points to a tendency of individuals to exalt whatever they have found significant and meaningful in their lives, perhaps through some memorable event or emotional imprint. The image of a radical magazine refers to a periodical that expresses extreme viewpoints or contains statements that depart considerably from the average or traditional point of view. And it dramatizes the desire of the individuals to assert themselves and make their marks on life in ways that will announce others who they are and what they value. On a practical level, this symbol is exemplified in the use of nicknames, the endowment of scholarships, bumper stickers on cars, personal logos, editorials, personal essays. At its highest, it represents personal distinctiveness that leaves an individual's trademark on everything he touches. The negative could be perverse pleasure in offending others or destroying those things and ideas that they hold dear. The accent is on freedom of speech. Strong statements and extreme viewpoints are likely to be heard today. Your greatest advantage lies in daring to be yourself. Do it in your own way. Guard against attacking the foundation of belief systems of others. Don't be insensitive of the rights of others to form their own opinions, to have their own value systems. Stepping stones would be extremism, speaking out, protest, assertion, nonconformity, activism, dissidence, fanaticism, liberalism, free thinking, and quarrelsomeness. All these fun words, right? So for me, when I was like really sitting down and thinking about it, I was like, really what it comes down to is that this is a symbol that suggests a need for communication and change, right? And it implies the power of media and information to provoke action or stir things up. The sensational front page might indicate the need to grab attention or push transformative ideas or actions. It's about power of information, how it's presented, and the potential impact that it can have on prompting a change or a movement. Now, the symbol suggests a call to action, right? So essentially like a need for change and transformation. It reflects the idea of disseminating new and revolutionary ideas through written or printed media. And the image conveys the importance of communication, especially in the context of promoting innovative or progressive thinking. So, I mean, very Sagittarius, Gemini kind of themes, right? Where Gemini is assessing the information, bringing it in. It could be a phone, it could be an email, it could be a newspaper, it could be a blog post, and it's just going through the data, right? The editor would be more Virgo. The teacher is actually Sagittarius. So we are going through the information, seeing if it resonates with, our beliefs and our cultures and our, philosophical views. And we're going to see a lot of polarity during this particular new moon because we do have a really strong Sun-Mars combination. And I think it's just gonna bring a lot of really interesting conversations around the holiday dinner tables if you celebrate here in the States. Now, this will be at 4 degrees, which if you follow degree theory, that's a degree that's associated with Cancer. So we're going to see the moon, right? The moon is emotional, sensitive, empathic, subconscious. It's feminine. It can deal with the past. It can deal with our home and our families. But in the sign of Gemini, it's changeable. It's flexible. It's sharing information. Maybe it's changing how it feels about a situation. So there may be lots of talk about our homeland, our home country, our families, our roots, where we come from, and how we feel about the state of our private lives. Now, 4 degrees usually is connected to 4, 16, or 28. So this is the very first degree associated with Cancer. And for me, this is about like the human race. It's also about a crowd of people. Okay, so keep that in mind because the full moon is really illuminating the moon and its opposition to Sun and Mars. And remember, Sagittarius is freedom fighters. These are people who want to go out and they want to talk about the higher, path, the right thing to do, the righteous thing to do, whatever. So, I mean, to me, it's like I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, I think we're already starting to feel some of these energies. Just this last week, I've been watching some of the protests that have been going on in Spain. Check that out if you guys haven't seen it. But I'm wondering if we're going to start to see real pushback. Obviously, at the time of this particular full moon, against authority because of the squares to Saturn. But nations, patriotism, what it means to be a patriot, of national origin, from homeland, for homelands, lakes or swimming pools, hometown, liquid water, tier, beers, milk, dairy products, put a pin in that, house, home, flat, threshold, or an entrance to a home, family, parents, with parents, women, mothers, and with mothers, public opinion, which is especially true because that's what the moon deals with. And that is the list of the Cancer degrees. So for me, obviously a short list, but quite a powerful one, because I think really what's going to probably come up is, you know, the topic in the discussion of like nationalism and what that means and how people are kind of feeling about where they're living and whether or not they have pride in where they come from. And obviously, like I said, a very complex square, because the sun and the moon are already in opposition. But when you see the sun and the moon and Saturn's in the middle within a 4-degree orb of a T-square, it means that the topic of discussion is going to be about, you know, like birthright and where you're born, whether or not you deserve to stay there, or, you know, what your culture is and where your heritage, you know, kind of lies, and whether or not you should be able to, you know, return back to your roots and go there. So there's been lots of conversation about this stuff. And obviously, you know, with Saturn in Pisces, we've heard a lot about borders, boundaries, immigration, you know, dissolving of borders, and how it's kind of led to a lot of intense conflict and challenges in regards to a clash of cultures. And I think it's pretty fair to say this is kind of happening more or less across the board, unless you're like Poland. That seems to be one of the only people who's like, no, we're not playing this game. And so those of you guys who are wondering, you know, who this is going to affect the most, definitely 3 to 5 degrees of the mutable signs. So Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces, you guys are going to be feeling this the most. Special importance, obviously, to Gemini, because this is a Gemini full moon. So Gemini sun, moon, risings, or personal planets around those degrees. But equally, I would say, pay attention, Virgo, because if you have any planets in the early degrees of Virgo, you will be experiencing a grand mutable cross. So challenging, but a little bit easier than dealing with the T-square that the rest of us get to kind of deal with. Now, like I said, looking back, if we look back on when this particular new moon was first kind of seeded, this was June of this year. There we go. And we had a new moon in Gemini. So think back to what was going on over the summertime. Look at what house this particular full moon will be taking place in. That's where you're seeing some kind of a completion. Now, Gemini is a mutable sign, which means it's changeable, it shifts, it's meant to be more flexible. It's also a double-bodied sign, which means it can kind of go back and forth between two things. And it is a sign that is an air sign, so it is about information, intellect, communication, and it is ruled by Mercury. So whenever we look at a new moon, a full moon in Gemini, or Gemini season, we want to see what's going on with Mercury. So one thing that really catches my eye with this particular new moon is that we had a new moon where Mercury was close by. So at least it was in its ruling position. It was pretty close to the moon. So that's within, you know, like a 16-ish degree orb. You know, for me, really what this says is that there's a need to really kind of tap into our emotions. There's a need to set intentions about what we need to learn, where we need to go, conversations we need to have, and really kind of connecting the mind and also like the emotional body. Now, this particular new moon was in almost an exact square to Neptune. So it was kind of like we're driving blind. We don't know where we're going. We think we know it all. We think we have all the information. And maybe we're confused and realizing that we need to read up on something, or we need to kind of do our due diligence to get better information. Mercury is also in a square to Saturn, okay? So in this new moon, and I remember I was like, what the heck is going on? This is so confusing. Both the new moon and also the ruler are in some harsh aspects to Saturn and Neptune. Now in this situation, you know, because it's squaring from, you know, the right-hand side, this is the opening square, right? So 12th house to 3rd house. And this represents where there are hidden forces, mental blocks, there can be spiritual blocks, there can be karmic blocks, there can be things going on behind the scenes that we don't see, some kind of manipulation, distortion, some kind of like invisible limit or control. And so, you know, maybe this is where we were starting to kind of see that, hey, we're having some fogginess or some blocks in understanding or being able to communicate or connect. So now 6 months down the road, this becomes a full moon. And so you start to see the effects of the intentions set during that time in full force. And what this is now going to do is it's going to make some of the same aspects. we're going to see the full moon, so the moon and the sun, square Saturn, okay? And we're going to see Mercury square Neptune. So there's some similar things here. And Mercury is very important at the time of this moon because, you know, Mercury rules Gemini. So we see both a Saturn square and we also see both a Neptune square. So it's very, very, very similar energy. Now, in general, when we have a full moon in Gemini, communication and expression is really highlighted. That's where we put all of our focus, and this can be conversations, writing, learning, and it's a time where thoughts and ideas come to fruition, and it leads to very important conversations. Intellectual curiosity is a theme with Gemini. We definitely see a sense of wanting to understand or kind of sample everything. There's a real strong desire for mental stimulation, so you guys might be finding that during the time of the full moon. Gemini is also a very social sign, so this can be a time where we see that there is more opportunity for social activities and interactions, networking and kind of connecting with friends or our local community. And this is also going to give us the opportunity, I think, to, like I said, practice duality and be, you know, more adaptive to situations, more flexible, and be open to balancing, you know, separate forces in our lives. So I think that we're going to be doing that. Learning and education comes up with a full moon in Gemini. It's definitely generally a favorable time for traveling or for writing something or signing a contract. Not so crazy about it during this particular full moon, to be honest with you. And I feel like, you know, generally expressing our ideas and our emotions during a full moon in Gemini is pretty positive as well, because we're going to feel this need to articulate, right, Gemini, our feelings and share them with other people. To me, this doesn't feel like that. The oppositions to Mars and the squares to Saturn feels like people are afraid of being canceled, or they're experiencing, you know, some kind of like disconnect, or there is a sense of people shutting down the conversation. Censorship is going to be a huge thing. And I think that we might start to see some big realizations about just how much censorship and overreach has been going on over the last 6 months, and the impact that it's been having on third house things like our ability to communicate, but also social media platforms. Now, this is where I told you guys, like, this is a Sagittarius season to remember, because we've got a lot of planets that are kind of throwing down the hammer on placements that are in Pisces. So I do feel like while this isn't something that's going to come out immediately, it will be something that will play out over the next few weeks. Now, generally, I like short trips during the Gemini full moon. I'm not crazy about it this time because I feel like there's going to be some travel hangups and there's going to be some unexpected delays and potentially even some weather issues. Watch for, you know, opportunities to multitask and to, you know, be able to handle various responsibilities simultaneously. But we may also see where our inability to stay focused and our inability to stay grounded, or where we're kind of distracted with like stuff that's coming out in tabloids, or, you know, things that are kind of popping up in the news, are distracting us from stuff that's going on behind the scenes. And it's kind of like what's been happening in the world while we've been discussing matters that, quite frankly, may not be as important as some of the discussions and decisions and things that are being decided upon behind closed doors, Pisces. Expressing yourself creatively is the positive here. You know, I'm really looking at a lot of the squares to Saturn because that's going to be the strongest aspect we're going to see outside of an opposition to Mars. I'll get to that. But a number of squares that are also going to be building to Neptune tells me that it can be giving us opportunities to be creative, especially through writing words and other forms of communication, finding unique and creative ways to express our ideas. And this can be things that are very inspirational and romantic and sensitive, because that's really what Pisces is. But I think that the challenge here, you know, for me, like I said, some really uncomfortable holiday discussions. Like, I'm just going to make the recommendation, like avoiding discussing, obviously, religion and politics at the dinner table this particular week, because you might notice that there's going to be some really intense exchanges, in particular with older generations. Not everybody, but with older generations. And I say this because of the square to Saturn. Just being somebody who's like kind of in this weird age like range, you know, I'm 34 now, so I'm not quite in my 40s, but I'm definitely not like a Gen Zer. And I feel like It's a weird place to be in, where I'm seeing some older generations that have always watched and consumed, you know, traditional TV, regardless of what news station you watch, it doesn't matter, and how fixated and attached to narratives people can be because they heard it on the news. And so I'm imagining that when there's going to be discussions over this week or this holiday period where people are talking about, well, this is what I read on Twitter, and somebody goes, well, they didn't talk about that on the news. You know, these are the squares to Saturn. And we're going to see that there's going to be probably lots of discussions about world events, in particular connected to war, because Mars is factored into the opposition to the moon, which is very irritating. And because both of these deal with information and travel and culture, and they're squaring Saturn, it tells me that we're going to find that there is an inability to agree or to see from common ground. There may be a bit of like an age gap, or, you know, some kind of like communication issue. I definitely think we're going to see communication issues. That's why I called this lost in translation. But it can be very uncomfortable. And I think part of that is just because of the complex nature of the T-square. I'm sure some of you guys have heard me say I would take a fixed square or a grand fixed square over a T-square any day, regardless of the mode. When you have an opposition like this and a T-square, so Saturn becomes the focal point. You guys see it? It's like getting T-boned, right? You're driving in one direction and wham! So you thought you were going to full moon in Gemini, publish your blog, you thought you were going to pass your exam, you thought you were going to get time off for the holiday, you thought you were going to hop in the car, and then you realize, oh, the car's got a blown fuse, or it's out of gas, or, you know, there's a snowstorm, I can't go anywhere, or, you know, I thought I took the time off and I realized I didn't. You guys are going to definitely feel the effects of the Saturn square. So I don't want to take away from Gemini, like focus on the area of your chart where Gemini is. Certainly that's where the action is going to be, but some kind of unexpected event, possibly, or delay or setback or challenge is going to come. And it can leave us feeling agitated, frustrated, reactionary, angry, you know, that moon in opposition to Sun, Mars, and Sagittarius. Now, clown world, right? That's the only real thing that kept coming up for me. Yes, things may feel mystical and magical and inspired. I could see that with some of the, you know, Mercury square Neptune. But I'm personally not a fan of Mercury square Neptune. I feel like there's too much, especially in a mutable sense, there's too much room for deceit, lies, manipulation, false information, manipulated data, edited things, you know, deep fake situations, masks, all kinds of like weird stuff that, especially at a 24, I mean, you guys want to give me some feedback here? Like, I don't think it gets any more so distorted than this square in these degrees, in these signs in particular. And then when we put it all together and we start to kind of look at, you know, the combination of the squares between Sagittarius and Pisces, regardless of the planets, really what it's showing me, especially with Mercury being in its fall, is that we're going to see some people who are just blindlessly pledging allegiance to things, to groups, to political groups, to entities that they don't understand. Okay. And like, obviously the Mercury and Sag video, we saw a lot of that in the comment section. There's a lot of people who are going to have a variety of different perspectives and beliefs. And a lot of that is because their experience, their education, also where they come from, their culture, right? And so everybody's going to have a different perspective. That's very much the Mercury square Neptune. So you're going to see that, you know, everybody's going to have an opinion, Mercury and Sag, but there's going to be some blind spots. And there's also going to be some things that are being said that are like, well, you know, somebody said this, this, and this, so I reacted, you know, so I commented on that post, so I confronted that person. And you want to be careful about, you know, what's going down at the time of the full moon, because the opposition to the Sun and Mars means people will react. People will bite back, they'll snap. And actions, Mars, have consequences, Saturn. And so I'm seeing this across the board. It's like, it's clown world. It's crazy to see some people who are of particular groups affiliating and also supporting groups that have nothing in common. And this is not me saying you can't be an activist. I want to be really clear here, because a lot of people seem to want to like pick apart some stuff that I say and take it personally. I'm not talking about any one particular group. I'm saying you're going to see some people that are blindlessly going, yes, I support this group of people because they are Democratic or they are Republican or they are this background or this ethnicity, or people who want to talk about, or in Sag's case, preach about things that they don't really know about, right? Or something, you know, that gets stirred up because of a post they saw on the internet. So it throws them into being like, well, we're going to go and we're going to protest and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. So, from what I remember, I don't know the date, but I think it's going to be happening at either the end of November or the beginning of December. There's supposed to be like a really big march in Washington, and they're encouraging a lot of college students to go. And it's going to be a march for, I think, for you know, people who support Israel, whoever those people may be, whether they identify as being Jewish or not. And I, for one, look at this and I go like, ooh, I would be really cautious about participating in anything right now that is going to be along those lines, because Sagittarius deals with college campuses, right? So we've got Mars there, which can be about action and, you know, people getting kind of agitated and frustrated. The Sun there, which is talking about this energy that's building where there's a ton of passion, and this isn't a fire sign. It's not like it was in Scorpio where it was really emotional and it was really sensitive and secretive. This is like loud and in your face. So that opposition to the moon can represent this polarity of forces where people are coming and speaking out and talking about things and sharing information, and it's being shared on media. And likely, you know, there could definitely be some real, some real issues with authority over some of these movements because of the Saturn square, and also some stuff that's being falsely represented with Mercury square Neptune. So I would say be very careful about what you see in the media, what you see in the news in general, but like really, really with this particular full moon, because something else to think about is that, you know, we're going to see a retrograde. Mercury's it's going to go back through these degrees. I am expecting more religious extremism, right? Sun, Mars in Sagittarius in the square to Saturn, and where we might hear that there is potential conflicts that can be taking place, which could lead to some travel warnings or advisories. That could be this square to Saturn, or places like airports. Unfortunately, recently, something that's going on right now is we're hearing lots of threats about bombings in hospitals, right? And so Mars, which can be things that are kind of like heated or attacking or explosive, Mars is squaring Saturn and Mercury is squaring Neptune. So I'm wondering, you know, now I'm filming this and this is like kind of getting closer to the mid-November period. Is there some kind of like, you know, awareness? Do we have some kind of breakthrough? Do we realize who, you know, is involved in this? Maybe. But that could definitely be the case here as well. And it's just really not a time for clear communication or honesty, honestly, because you're going to see that this is so charged that it's almost going to be so confusing and so complicated that it's going to be hard to be able to get the point across because people are just going to be reacting. Moon in opposition to Mars is that pressure where somebody takes some kind of action and it puts you in a position where you feel like you have to say something. But words have consequences. Actions have consequences. And that's something that I want people to like really think about, that, you know, in the midst of this full moon where you see such intense complexity and polarization, really the key here is to really focus on Saturn, and where Saturn really is the troublemaker. He's the focal point of the T-square. He's inhibiting you from being able to have the things that you want to have. Now, part of me also kind of feels like, you know, it was kind of a bit set up for this. If you looked at that new moon that we saw in June, where it was square Neptune, it means we thought we knew what we were manifesting, where we were going, what we were doing. And here we have the full moon and we realize, oh, we didn't really have it right, or it wasn't so clear, or we weren't properly prepared, or, you know, we didn't think this through. When in reality, both the Mercury square Neptune and this moon square Saturn is saying, no, it's going according to plan. The things that are now becoming blocked or feeling limited were actually seated back then. We just didn't see it. We just weren't aware. We weren't paying attention. We were sleeping. watch for the misunderstandings, miscommunications, and distorted information. Be very, very careful with videos that you are resharing or things that you are sending or things that you are citing that's in another language. I think that just goes without being said at any point in time, but especially now because Mercury is in a sign where it's in its fall, which means it does not behave as well. When it's in Sagittarius, it's positive, it's optimistic, it likes to travel, it likes to have a good time, it likes to teach. Wonderful, wonderful keywords for Mercury and Sagittarius. But the fact of the matter is, when it goes through a Jupiterian sign, it can fabricate. It can make things seem bigger than they really are. It can be too overly optimistic. It can be too overzealous. It can take on too much. What? Information, right? And so the dispositor of this, as if that wasn't complicated enough, is Jupiter. And Jupiter is retrograde, and Jupiter's coming into an inconjunct or a quincunx with the Sun and Mars within a couple days following, which means I think you guys are going to hear some phenomenal positive reports about the economy, that we're going to be fine, things are going to be okay, things are going to be in an upward swing. Don't worry about the banking institutions. Don't worry about jobs, right? Jupiter is 6 signs away from Sagittarius, so this represents the jobs. This represents health and productivity. This represents also employees of food, restaurant, banking institutions. I'm watching all of this because I think that really what's coming is that there is going to be a way to spin things to try to encourage, consumers to be like, don't worry about what's going on. Go buy those holiday presents. Y'all charge up your credit cards. So that way we can get through until the new year. And I think that storyline is going to start to crumble a little bit. Even the Sun and Mars being conjunct, it's still connected to Jupiter. And so with that in opposition to the moon, that means that we're having a difference of opinion on, well, who's making money off the war? Or, what should we be funding? Why are we sending money to other people? Why do we need to be helping, others for, conflict or fallout that they're having in their own country? Obviously, my heart goes out to countries that aren't dealing well with things right now. It's a really scary time, but I look at this and I go, more aid package being sent to countries, at least here in America, it's going to cause some issues. We're definitely going to have some disagreements about how that money is being spent, where that money is going, yeah, I think that's going to be the overall topic. I think Sagittarius, Mercury in Sagittarius, it is checking and it is challenging Neptune. But like I said, this is in the midst of the shadow. So Mercury will actually retrograde from about 8 degrees of Capricorn back to 22 degrees of Sagittarius. So by the time this full moon hits, it's not the Mercury retrograde yet, but it is already in the path of where it will retrograde. So we're going to see Mercury square Neptune several times. What this means is that we're going to have to wait until Mercury retrogrades back into Sagittarius at some point between mid-December and early January, and returns back to this particular square with Neptune. So likely news is coming out at the time of this full moon, which is very expected with the full moon in Gemini. And that news is like, oh, it's not what it looks like. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here, right? 24 degrees. No, don't look at this, look at that. The finances are good. Everything's fine. We've got plenty of this, that, and the other. And I really feel like that's not the case. And I would be really careful about what financial information you're buying. I would also be really mindful of what you're supporting or what you're donating, money to. Make sure you really know where it's going and how it's being spent if you are wanting to support a cause that's near and dear to your heart. And I do think, like I said, these planets in Sag are laying down the sledgehammer on Saturn, which is about control. It is about leadership. It is about structures. And it's not just government. This could be prisons. I think there's been a lot of news that's been coming out about the truth of how much money we're spending on prisons, which happen to mostly be a private business. How there's clearly a business of sending as many people as possible within the legal system, into incarceration or charging them with crimes, because, well, the U.S. government's got contracts with people, and a lot of our tax money is going to that, and they're also getting kickbacks. So Pisces is about prisons, mental institutions. It's about private lands. It's about hidden places. Likely we're going to hear probably about something coming out about some weird stuff involving an organized religion and some, religious extremist group of some kind. It doesn't matter who they are. It's going to be something, because this is across the board. And I think it's going to create more conflict and more divide, but it's going to come down to the narrative, right? And so with Jupiter being connected to Sagittarius, making something bigger, we're going to be more so confused, more so misunderstood, more so miscommunicating, misunderstanding. And so we're going to have to rely on the higher octaves of Sagittarius, which I think is going to be judges, just judges, people who are not paid off, people who are telling the truth, who really want to look out for the rule of law, lawyers, attorneys, activists, truth tellers, professors, universities. Some universities, I saw something really crazy on online this week. It was like saying how there was like a huge information drop about how essentially like how some universities were involved in trying to like limit information during like the pandemic, and like they were also, something connected to like information, and they were funding basically to like limit stuff that was inhibiting freedom of speech. Going back to that Sabian symbol, like I said, I'll give you guys the rundown again. The need for communication to change, okay? The power of media and information to provoke action and stir things up. Hello? I mean, this is like bang on. It's not every full moon in Gemini that you're going to get Mars in opposition, but also sensationalizing something. That's very Mercury square Neptune or Mercury square Jupiter. Mercury is also building... once it goes retrograde, it'll come into an inconjunct or a quincunx. So it's almost like there's going to be some information that's going to come out. People are going to go, you're just a conspiracy theorist, or you're just, sensationalizing something. And we may find that after the retrograde period, that after the facts and the information starts to unfold, like in the new year, it's like, wow, that's not so crazy, right? Gemini deals with documents, paperwork. Think of like your driver's license, right? And think of like your ID cards, if you have an ID card at work, or if you need one for school. Think of like your registration, anything where you have to show identification. And so something about this makes me wonder, is there finally going to be more discussion about the fact that like the EU is essentially they're going to have to vote on it, but they are talking about moving forward with these digital IDs, which will also be attached to a digital wallet. I know you guys are sick of hearing about this, but this is a pretty big deal. We're also hearing more about whether or not the Biden administration is going to be allowed to limit or potentially be involved in encouraging or mandating that certain internet companies are going to be throttling or choking certain content. They can't control the content, then what they can do is they can have a hand in how easy it is to be accessible. We're going to hear more, I think, about Web3 coming out, especially with Pluto coming into Aquarius. And I wonder if this is going to be about how there is more discussion about this and people trying to spin it. No coincidence, if you guys go and do your due diligence, I think it's called, I want to say it's called 5 and 50. I think that's what it's called. So there's a new term for it, right? You just hear these like little cute like catchphrases. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's 5 and 50. But they're saying by the end of 2028, they want to have at least 50 countries involved in this new project. And the new project is to get everybody kind of set up with digital IDs. Well, guess who is investing in that particular group? Take a guess. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They are the largest donors that are involved in this project, ensuring that everybody is up to date online and connected with the digital ID. And they are now going and meeting and connecting with a variety of prime ministers and foreign leaders and discussing this project to get everybody linked into this by the end of 2028. Now, it's the end of 2023 right now. Let's just say it's almost 2024. So essentially within the next 4 years, they're wanting to do this. What will that do, right? How will that inhibit or limit our ability to get around, to have privacy? Saturn in Pisces is about, I think, the limitations revolving around overreach of privacy. It's also about, what we don't see, where there's being things that are being limited. You might say you have freedom of speech, but this tells me with Mercury square Neptune and the sun square Saturn, that this is this awareness collectively that freedom is an illusion, right? That we think we have freedom, but there may be certain futures where, you know, we may not have as much freedom. And that's scary for me as a content creator. And I consider myself to be, I think, a little bit more ballsy than some people. Probably shouldn't be, but in recent videos, I've seen a number of people ask me, well, why are you always talking about politics? Well, first of all, if you don't want to watch my channel, there's tons of other astrologers out there. There's probably many that are better than me. But there's a lot of content out there. And I think it's important, especially under a full moon in Gemini, to get a wide variety of different perspectives, so you can hear different voices. And unlike other astrologers, if they just want to do day in and day out horoscopes, that's totally fine. I do that too. But I feel like part of my purpose is to create content to help wake people up, to help them connect the dots, to get outside of the self-absorbed ego, I just read my sun sign, tell me what's in the future, and actually learn to make astrology work for you. So when you start to learn astrology visually, right, with all my scribbles all over the screen, and you start to see me showing you, okay, this is moving here and this is what happens, most people are visual learners. They're going to understand better when they see it physically. And then they're going to start to realize, okay, then I start to see the symbols actually play out in life. So I connect the dots for you guys to show you not only how to use it in your own life, but why things are happening in the world and how to be prepared for what's coming. So much about this particular full moon, I think, is about keeping an open mind, right? Not just bowing down to censorship or authority, not just shutting up because you're afraid you're going to get canceled, not just keeping quiet because you're afraid you're going to offend somebody. As much as I hate to say that, I mean, you know, rarely do well-behaved people make history. And right now we're at a turning point where we're seeing in some places, people who are posting memes are going to jail. People in certain countries who are reporting on what's going on in the world are being fined or put in jail. This is a really scary time. This is like some Orwellian shit. And I think that we don't want to wait until we start seeing, you know, Saturn get even deeper into where it's even having its hands even more in things. Now, people might say, well, what does it matter, you know, what we can see on the internet? Well, you're watching me, at least now, maybe on a regular basis. I'm not saying that this is the only way that you get information, but what happens if you need to learn how to like change a car battery and you don't know how to do that? You're gonna go to the internet. What happens if you need to learn how to cook something or fix something yourself? You're gonna need to go to the internet. So the future potentially of some of this Web3 stuff may be kind of tied into these digital IDs. So if you want to have access, you're going to have to abide by the rules in terms of being able to get that ID. We don't know if that's going to be connected to social credit score. We also don't know if that's going to be connected to your finances or, you know, potentially even your health records, because all of this is going to be all encompassing. It's a lot of information to have that we're just turning over to the government that's giving us almost no privacy. Once they're able to see where we're going, what we're doing, what we're spending money on, forget it. It's game over. It's done. So I think that there's probably going to be some initiative to try to kind of shut down and kind of cool the conversation November or December for some of these topics as we're going into 2024, as we're going to be seeing there's going to be a vote on some of these things in terms of whether or not they're going to move forward with the digital IDs in the EU, whether or not we're going to be moving forward with the World Health Organization treaty, but they keep changing the name, but essentially it's going to be giving a backdoor to your constitutional right to say no to government overreach with health and your wellness decisions, which originally has been set up to be only between you and your general care physician, right? So this is showing us through this full moon where there is some oogie boogie man that is having some control in what? Universities, culture, travel, foreign war, Sun, Mars, and Sagittarius, media, information, communication. Oh, but, you know, don't worry. It's like all convenient and it's not a big deal. And just, you know, loan. Now we're being asked to loan money to Ukraine. Ridiculous. Isn't it interesting that since we started seeing the you know, stuff that's been breaking out in the Middle East, there's almost no talk of Ukraine. It's like crickets, right? So I'm wondering if this is going to be when there's going to be a full-fledged media move to be like, we're moving to the next thing, you know, here we go, and getting everybody now kind of wrapped up in this whole situation where there's some kind of conflict in another place. Why? Because it's going to distract. So if you guys start to see this happening at the end of November, you'll understand why. And if you're finding in your own life that there is an inability to kind of understand or comprehend what's going on, you're going to have to blame it on the mutable squares. So this mutable T-square involving Saturn, the moon, and Mars. Okay, Saturn, moon, and Mars. The sun is there, but we're focusing on this right now. Essentially is, bringing together this T-square, which is creating tension. And the positive is that this encourages growth. So it's basically saying if you do more of this Saturn thing, yes, the full moon is in Gemini, but if you do more of this Saturn thing, okay, which is about restriction, limitation, dissolving things, meditating, reflecting, choosing maybe to take a step back, you'll be able to overcome some of this tension. Saturn represents structure, discipline, limitations, responsibilities, and the moon signifies emotions, instincts, and the subconscious. So Mars embodies action, energy, and assertiveness. So when you have this T-square, it's like all of these energies are happening at once. It's like get emotional, mouth off, pop off, especially with the Gemini Sag axis. And then Mars and Sag, fight for what's right. And then Saturn is like, no, I don't say anything. It's crazy to me that I see so many other countries where people are so vocal, and I see tons of people that are out and they're in the streets and they're protesting and they're basically challenging the status quo with what's going on with their, their local or their federal governments. And as an American, I feel like we're all asleep. It's scary. And I think that it's become that way because, well, look at Saturn. Saturn's at 0 degrees. It's a karmic placement to have Saturn at 0 degrees. It's very strong. And Pisces represents drugs, alcohol, depression, homelessness, isolation, separation, dissolving, and hiding away, not wanting to see things. There's probably going to be situations where we have to really take a good hard look at what's going on in the world when this full moon happens. Because I think the involvement of Saturn is basically bringing up this feeling of restriction and the need to work hard within our emotional and our assertive realms. So it's going to be really showing us a struggle between our emotional needs, expression, and a drive to take action against the backdrop of limitations and responsibilities. So I'm assuming a lot of people are going to go, well, I would do something and I'm really agitated, but what am I going to do? Right? What can I do? I can't do anything. There's no use in fighting back or pushing back because it's pointless. That's probably what we're going to hear. I think this configuration also might manifest as a sense of inner conflict and tension. So you might feel, compelled to take some kind of action, and you're, kind of wanting to do that based off of how you're feeling, but you're encountering so many obstacles and challenges that you're feeling like, which way do I go? I'm confused. Something's not clear to me, or something's getting blocked. I've heard in sessions a lot this month, a lot of people going, I don't know what the block is, but there's something there. Hi, that's Saturn. Hi, that's Saturn. And it's really important to embrace change, be flexible, and a willingness to adapt in various situations. I think if Gemini is what I say and Sag is what I know, Saturn in Pisces is finally having this breakthrough moment where it's like, I didn't have all the information. I didn't know what was really going on. I wasn't aware of what happened. I wasn't given the full truth. I wasn't shown this data. Now is a really important time, instead of fighting and having conflict, to admit where we were wrong, where we didn't really know the storyline, or we lost the plot, or perhaps there was intentional manipulation. But the only way to better combat some of this conflict is through the ability to sit down and practice peace and forgiveness so we can actually move forward. Now, the other thing to take into consideration, like I said, is that Mercury-Neptune square. That's going to play out still for another month. So not a good time to sign things, agree to things, especially planning travel. Small details might be overlooked. Legal situations, college applications, traveling, these things all seem a little jumbled. And you'll see, let me show you guys, you'll see, because the Mercury retrograde is going to start around here. So it's going to be on the 13th of December. Mercury will retrograde back. Watch this. And it's going to square Neptune with Mars around December 27th. So it comes back into a similar square. And then hours later, it'll conjunct Mars at 24 and still square Neptune. So mark my words, something that's happening now that's like, oh, this little ditty came out and like maybe it's held back. Maybe it's some big news and it's not on mainstream TV, right? Saturn in Pisces can be limitation on screens. Some big event happens and like nobody knows what's going on. And then we get to the end of December and Mercury's like, oh, by the way, remember that full moon? Well, here she is again. And it's all more manipulation, confusion, all of that stuff. And this time, Mars rules the North Node. So it's in a trine. So it is going to be about taking action in terms of, you know, what we've learned, what we know now, moving through the miscommunication and understanding, taking action to facilitate making a change. And then still, Mercury's going to go direct. It's going to come back into a square. Okay, so it'll do its thing, square with Neptune January 7th. The moon's going to come into conjunction with Mercury. It's going to square Neptune. And I feel like this is when shift is really starting to hit the fan. People are going to start to realize that whatever has been changing in the Sagittarius area, and I think it's going to be about travel. I think it's going to be about culture. I think it's going to be about the legal system. We're going to start to kind of really unwrap everything and realize that we've been fed a whole lot of horse shit, Sagittarius. You guys are all laughing, right? With your big old grins as I say that. You're like, yes. Combativeness with moon opposed Mars. And then obviously the Saturn square. So communication challenges, balancing emotion and logic, responsibility in relationships, learning and communication, being felt like we have to practice emotional restraint. And really having better discipline, I think, in our communication in general. And then finally, the last big aspect for me is Venus is at 21. That's where we had that solar eclipse in Libra, if you guys remember. When was that? Not too long ago. I should know the date. Sorry, guys. As I'm recording this, Mercury is square Saturn, so I'm doing my best. Okay, so we had this solar eclipse in Libra. Remember this little baby? So now we have Venus that's coming back and hitting this degree, which is the ruler of this particular eclipse. Oh, hi, 21 degrees. So this is about law, legality, right? The bigger picture. This could have been about international relations. This was also conjunct the South Node. So this is about, you know, a breakdown of relationships and diplomacy. And it was square Pluto. It's basically saying certain relationships and partnerships are changing. Allies are changing as a result of feeling like they're under pressure because of Pluto's control. This is also the breakdown of like balance and equality and law. So here comes Venus. And honestly, Venus, pretty good planet. Venus is going to be reactivating that eclipse point. So that tells me that maybe it's bringing some support. Maybe it's bringing some assistance, some love, some nourishment. Maybe there is something good coming from this. It's a sister sign to Gemini. You're not really going to see much support from the moon, but still. And in the days to follow, Venus will conjunct the South Node. So it's going to clear something and it's going to square Pluto. But if you guys remember when I talked about Venus and how Venus was going to come into conjunction with the South Node, at 24, it'll be 24. It's going to quincunx Neptune. So there's a lot of like Neptune stuff, huh? There's a lot of Neptune stuff going on that's like, oh, what's intentionally being dissolved behind the scenes? And this is 6th house to Libra, so it's about health and balance, routine, habits. Anyway, the reason why I brought this up is because I think that there's still more activations connected to the eclipse, and so it may be showing you how some of this stuff relates to Libra in your life. And Mercury's in its shadow, more to be revealed. That's pretty much it. The only one other thing I would say is that a mere hours after this particular full moon, actually even before, so as soon as the moon enters Gemini, okay, so the night before, so November 26th, you're really gonna start feeling this. The moon squares Saturn, so it already feels the block, and it opposes Mars, so it already gets agitated. And then it's like boom, 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 overnight, we have the full moon. We wake up in the morning. We're feeling the full moon effects on the 27th. And then we're going to watch this moon continue to build until it's in opposition to Mercury, which is really important because Mercury rules Gemini. And then it's going to square Neptune on the 28th. So it's like the 26th, the 27th, the 28th. Forget it. And I think the finale of this is going to be this square. So Neptune is kind of saying, hi, no, don't look at this. Look away. That's not what you think it is. And there's definitely going to be some weird media spin. Something like this is going to be happening around the end of November. So watch for it. All right. You guys are like, yeah, get on with it. How's it going to affect me? So let's look at the 12 signs. As a reminder, I read whole sign for you guys when I do these predictions. If you would like to listen to Placidus, you are more than welcome to do that. I would just recommend looking at where 4 degrees of Gemini is in your chart. You can listen for your rising sign, you can listen for your sun sign, you can listen for your moon sign. Because it's a full moon, I would definitely listen to all 3. The sun sign is going to be more in regards to your happiness, your career, and your overall joy. The rising sign is going to tell you quite literally where in your life this is going to hit. And then the moon sign is kind of what you need to know emotionally, okay? And once again, special attention to Gemini, sun, moon, risings, about 3 to 5 degrees, and the mutable signs, 3 to 5 degrees. When I do this, I don't want you guys just to look at Gemini. I also want you to look at Neptune and Saturn as well, okay? Because that's going to be the focal point. There we go. Let's change this around a little bit. There we go. Okay. All right. So we're going to start first with my Aries rising. What's going on, guys? So you're going to have a full moon in Gemini. A lot of what I've been saying, you're like, yes, I get it. The full moon is in your 3rd house. So this is going to be putting an emphasis on communication, learning, and short trips. You might find that there is an emphasis on sibling relationships. Your local community might be highlighted in some way. Now, this particular full moon is going to be in opposition to Mars, which is your chart ruler, which means you might get a little agitated in terms of communication or travel. We are also going to see that there will be a square happening with Saturn. So I look at this and I'm like, you don't want to have an issue with a vehicle. You don't want to have an issue where you lost a document. You really want to pay attention because you're more prone to like leaving gadgets places or them kind of having water damage because Mercury is square Neptune. Leaving things at airports, you know, getting lost in a foreign country, you know, forgetting to sign a document. These are things that you might kind of see that pops up with this particular full moon for you guys, okay? So let's see what the cards say for you in terms of this full moon. The card that I get is the Knight of Cups, which is a card that can be dealing with a water sign. So it can be talking about a Cancer, a Scorpio, or a Pisces. Could it mean that you have an unexpected conversation with somebody that pops out of the blue? Yeah, I'm looking at Venus conjunct your South Node too. So maybe you have a dream about somebody, maybe somebody reaches out to you, there is some kind of unexpected communication or conversation, and you're like, how do I handle this? Generally, the Knight of Cups can also be really dreamy and romantic. It can be about feeling more creative, charming. This can also be about, you know, being diplomatic and being a negotiator. So certainly with a full moon in your 3rd house, it's really putting an emphasis on communication and maybe trying to kind of find ways to, yeah, kind of be a mediator between, you know, another group of people, or trying to kind of get your point across. Just watch for those challenges or those delays that might come from this as well, okay? Good luck. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. You will be experiencing a full moon. This will be taking place in Gemini in your natal 2nd house. So the 2nd house is all about financial matters and values. This is definitely going to come to a head. This is about balancing material needs with intellectual pursuits. And you've got a really heavy 8th house in Sagittarius. So this is about changes in your, you know, philosophy and your belief system, changes with your joint resources. And anytime you have full moon in this axis, this is about resources and money. So sometimes we see money come in, sometimes we see money go out. Sometimes this is about making a big purchase in the second house. But I noticed that you have a lot of oppositions in the 8th house. So it's going to be a lot of back and forth with you and another person about maybe a purchase or an investment. Now, if you notice at the time of this moon, there is a number of squares to Saturn and also Neptune that's in your 11th house. So you may feel like you and another person are kind of like on two different ends of the spectrum when it comes to, you know, your values and what you value and what you want and how you want to spend money or how you want to invest it. There can also be some challenges revolving around your goals pertaining to money and resources here as well. Watch out for, you know, borrowing and lending. That can be an issue. I do see a Mercury retrograde coming in your 8th, so there might be something changing with your partner's resources. And if not your partner, it's about your access to money. So it might mean that you're focusing on paying off debt or trying to refinance a loan. And maybe your goals revolving around that stuff is coming full circle. So you might find that if there is like a payout or there's a chunk of change that comes in actually with a full moon in your second house, it might be about settling up with some debt or covering something that you potentially owe. I'm also really interested with Venus on the South Node because Venus is your ruler. And that might indicate that you are spending a little bit of money to fix something or kind of like perfect something. And this can be revolving around your routine or your health. So take that into consideration. So you might be looking at how you might potentially finance something like that. For you, we get the 10 of Wands, which is about, you know, kind of completing a cycle. So, you know, overcoming hurdles, extra responsibilities, effort, stress, exhaustion, duty, obligation, feeling a little burnt out. I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. I think the other thing is that, you know, you're seeing all of these planets in Sagittarius come into and in conjunct with your sun, moon, or your rising. So it does kind of indicate that there's something that's kind of making you feel like, okay, let's just complete this. Let's just get over with it. So I'm wondering what it is that you're hoping to complete financially, emotionally, psychologically. And obviously, you know, burdens feel like a thing. Squares to Saturn is where we feel like there is some kind of complication or there is some kind of heavy weight that we're dealing with. And I think it's about finally maybe releasing some kind of heavy burden that you've been carrying for some time, okay? This also is a card sometimes that comes up with like moving or movement. And so, you know, the moon does rule your 3rd house, Taurus. So it might be that you're kind of weighing your options about potentially moving or making a change on the home front and like what that might cost. Good luck. Gemini rising. Obviously, this is your full moon. So go ahead, put on your clown nose, get out your makeup. So that way you're ready to go. Although you're going to be like, I'm not the clown, you're the clown. There's a lot of energy that's being projected within relationships. So especially if you have anything within the degrees mentioned, that 3, 4, 5 degrees, pay extra attention. So this is a bit of a doozy because we have the full moon in your 1st house, which means you might be feeling emotional. There might be big feelings kind of coming up, heightened emotions, awareness of your self-image. And really the focus here with a full moon between your 7th and your 1st house is balancing personal needs with the needs for communication and intellectual stimulation. So this is saying that there is a big change or maybe an awareness or a completion for you, which has an impact on others. Now, it might be inspiring to other people. That's the good news, is that I think Sun Mars in the 7th is like you being like, look what I did, you can do it too, right? Very possible. And this could be inspiring like clients, it could be friends, it could be teachers because it's Sag. It could be romantic partners, whatever. But the challenge here is that there's so many damn planets in the 7th house. It's like, it's a full moon that should be about you, but there's a lot of action with other people. And so maybe this is kind of bringing up some, you know, intensity in relationships. Sun and Mars and Mercury there. Other people can be, you know, quite busy, quite assertive. And it's all coming into a square with Saturn and Neptune. So to me, it seems like this is about like, how do I balance relationships and also, you know, work, career, responsibilities and still find time for me? What about me? What do I want? Right? The nice thing is that I feel like, you know, Saturn is basically saying, hey, 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 you have like a responsibility, and the responsibility is to your public image, to your status, to your work. So, you know, you may have to be more attentive to a romantic or a business partner. You may have to sit down and like hear what somebody else at work has to say and kind of work through it. But obviously Saturn is going to be the focal point, and your chart ruler, Mercury, is in a square to Neptune. So it's almost like I see this as you're trying to communicate and kind of talk to and be there for a partner or support another person, but you're like, I got other things I need to be doing too. And like, this is kind of keeping me or inhibiting me from being able to figure out what I'm doing work-wise. I could also see conflicts arising over work and career matters, right? And if you've got a partner that's kind of getting on your case about how much you're working, or if you are or are not working, that could be a theme here as well. And while the 10th house is your career, it's your partner's home and family. So you may feel like there is a lot of energy going on revolving around what their goals are when it comes to home, and whether or not, you know, you're around enough to help them with that, or things involving their family and your involvement. Travel can be a big thing too. So it can be like, my partner's got to go somewhere, but I got to work. Like, how do we make this work, right? The card that I get is the Eight of Swords. It's going to be one of those readings, guys. This is about self-imposed prison or thoughts, limiting or negative thoughts, victim mentality, feeling trapped, helpless, powerless, or the victim. Okay, don't shoot the messenger, literally. I mean, I look at this as you're going to have a Mercury retrograde in your 7th house anyway. So there's going to be an opportunity to reevaluate relationships and what is and is not working. And perhaps maybe with some of the squares to the 10th house, it's a relationship to someone or something, and whether or not you see that going the distance, or whether or not you see that kind of meshing with the professional or the public life that you're trying to create. It almost seems as if, you know, they're putting pressure, some outside source is putting pressure on you to like grow up. Right? Go figure. And you might be like, what more do you want me to do? I'm like stuck. What can I do? You know, that can also be a very Pisces energy of not feeling like you can, you know, decide which direction you're going to be going in. But remember, this is self-limiting beliefs. It's something that you can get out of. It's just all in your mind, right? So be careful also about other people influencing you and telling you what you can or cannot do as well. There can be some bully type energy that can come in here. Good luck. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You will be experiencing a full moon in your 12th house. And we know how you guys are with full moons. You guys feel them a little bit more sensitively because you're ruled by the moon. So when you have a full moon in the 12th house, there's an emphasis on subconscious patterns, spiritual insights, and seclusion, having some time alone, balancing the need for alone time with social and communicative urges. So, you know, here we've got the 6th house, which is about health and routine. Mars is here, Sun is here, Mercury is here. So this can be about your habits. This can be about your workplace. This can be about things that you're trying to get done. And that's also a house that deals with health versus the 12th house, which is about rest and recuperation. So it almost feels like there's so much going on that you really do need more private time, downtime, rest. Like there is a need to be like, okay, you know what? I need to actually rest my body, especially with Mars being in this house. I think some of you guys are just working a lot, or you're having changes to your work schedule, or maybe you're having to travel for work. And so maybe it's having an impact on your sleeping habits, especially if you're like in different time zones with that square to Saturn. Some of you guys are focusing more on health and fitness. And so because of that, your bodies need a little bit more rest than usual. And so maybe you're like, I need to go to bed early and go to the gym in the morning, or I need to get a massage and like rest because I'm sore. And changes also to travel plans or changes to education plans, like your schedule having to change. So some of you guys might find that you're kind of like, well, I got to go to school during the day. So now I'm like going to school during the day and I'm working nights and I'm finding sleep when I can. All of these placements are going to come into a square with Saturn and also Neptune, right? And so I wonder, like, are you trying to work a different schedule? Are you trying to talk to somebody who's in a different time zone and it's like impacting your sleep schedule? because of all the houses that are going to kind of get dinged here. So it's important to make sure that you make time for rest, recuperation. And also, if you're feeling a little squirrely, take time. Don't focus on being super busy. Take a step back and just get a little bit more rest. And know that, you know, sometimes a full moon in the 12th house means that we do need to see a doctor or a specialist, or that we do need to have a little bit more downtime because our body or our health, 6th house, is saying, hey, you know, not feeling so hot. Especially because Mercury will retrograde through here. So if you're wanting to take better care of your health or heal something, this is a time that that may come to your awareness. How appropriate. We get the Star card, which is about healing. This is about also taking time to be able to heal yourself, work on things, focus on your wishes, and then reconnect with other people. So this is about hope, renewal, miracles, rejuvenation, faith, and purpose, as well as healing, positivity, and inner clarity. Well, this is not the best moon for getting clarity, but I will say that it is possible that when you get out of the daily routine and the grind, maybe you're able to find that clarity. And it might be that you're like, I need a retreat, or I need to go to church, or, you know, I need to kind of sit down and talk to a therapist. Something about communication and talking and sharing ideas, but in a private way. It can be as simple as journaling, right? That could be really helpful for you as well. But I definitely think it's about being able to set intentions revolving around healing something, okay? Good luck, my Cancers. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You will be experiencing a full moon. This will be taking place in Gemini in your natal 11th house. And so this is great for social connections, friendships, group activities. You know, there might be a party or a gathering or a get-together of some sort, seeing your friends, being around like-minded people. And it's also going to really be bringing a focus to balancing individual expression and, you know, bringing that to the collective. So where the 5th house is I create, the 11th house is I share. So something that you're working on, something that you really love, that you're passionate about. Maybe it's a place that you're traveling or visiting, Sagittarius. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's a romantic relationship, whatever. It's about sharing that with other people. Now, at the time of the full moon, we're going to see that both the moon will come into a square, and that will be with Saturn. Okay, I'm kind of losing the moon here. It's originally at 4 degrees, so it'll be a square with Saturn. So it does represent like visibility, you know, being transparent, feeling vulnerable, putting yourself in a position of being like, are other people going to like what I'm doing? It can be that people are critical of relationships because Saturn rules your 7th house. Friends can be critical of relationships. And we see Sun and Mars in the 5th house, which is very strong because Sun rules your chart. You're like, I love what I love. I don't care. I don't want to see the red flags, you know, or maybe there can be a sense of showing a piece of art that you've completed. Maybe it's about showing off a picture with you and your kids, right? It could be that as well. And then we're also going to see the ruler Mercury come into a square with Neptune. So much of this particular full moon is about transparency and visibility, and also, you know, maybe showing people or giving people a little bit more of like an intimate look into your life or into your emotions or your feelings. It may also suggest that, you know, with Saturn being in the 8th house, that you may, if you're in a position where you're selling something, like if you have like a service, or maybe you have like you're presenting like a new product, the square to Saturn might be like, oh, well, people said they like it, but like nobody bought anything. So this is not a good moon for like releasing something new that you're hoping to sell. I would wait a little bit. Wait until, you know, the moon's getting into like Virgo, right? And it starts trining stuff in your 10th house and also trining Pluto in your 6th house. Find a different lunar transit. This is not the one to do it because you may kind of feel a little disgruntled about some of the feedback that you're getting. The card that I get is the 3 of Pentacles. So this is great. I mean, this is basically telling me that you may get some constructive criticism, right? So 3 of Pentacles is about collaboration, teamwork skills, shared goals, work, learning, and pooling your energy. So it's good if you're like having meetings, working with groups of people. you know, connecting with them and like guiding them. But this is a lot of getting feedback. And I feel like with the moon in opposition to your sun Mars, you're like, I like to do something this way. And other people are like, why don't you try this? And you're like, you know, you may not like the advice that's being given to you. So, you know, really be open to support and collaboration with other people, because I think it could help make whatever you're creating or whatever you're working on, like even all that much better. Good luck. I've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You will be experiencing a full moon in Gemini in your natal 10th house of career. My Virgos, you are one of the signs that's going to want to put on a helmet. Make sure it is fastened tight, especially if you have sun, moon, or rising within that 3, 4, 5 degrees, or personal planets as well, because you will be experiencing this grand mutable cross, which, like I said, in my mind is easier to deal with. Part of being a Virgo or a Virgo rising means you're very analytical. You can spot flaws. You can work through issues. Like you can come up with solutions, right? That's what you're really good at. And when you have a grand mutable cross, the wheel of the chart turns. So you see a lot of change that's happening in the area of the full moon. So this is career, which ricochets and like says, okay, I got to go into solution solving mode. And then it ricochets and it squares your 4th house, which is how does it make me feel? How does it change my home? And then it ricochets, squares Saturn in your 7th house of relationships, which then comes back up here and it completes that square. So the full moon is at work, which basically means you may see a situation where professional matters, your public image comes into focus. Balancing career aspirations with personal interests is going to be a big theme. Quitting jobs, getting promotions, experiencing layoffs, making a change with work, like whatever. That's kind of the name of the game. However, this is going to be in opposition to the sun and Mars, which means maybe you're like, okay, I quit my job and now I'm moving, or I got offered a new position and now I'm going somewhere else. Change, right, is Mars, and then the sun is about releasing and letting go. So some of you guys are like, okay, I'm taking off, I'm going home for the holiday. That could be fine. You're taking a break from work, you're going to visit family. Whatever it is, it almost feels like there's so much action in the 4th house that you're like, okay, I really wish I was back at work. My family's driving me crazy, or I'm having to take time from work because I'm really focusing on moving or remodeling my home, or I've got something going on with a roommate. So it's a little all over the place. What's really interesting is that Mercury is the ruler of this moon, and it also rules you, and it's in a square to Neptune. The moon's also square Saturn. So it kind of makes me feel like you're trying to kind of hang in there and navigate stuff in your professional life, but you're not really feeling supported by a partner, or you're feeling the lack of that support in your life. Maybe you're like, I wish I had somebody who could help me, or maybe it prompts you to say, I need to get a reading, or I need to talk to a therapist. And yeah, it's a square. Even if you don't have any planets here, I mean, obviously if you're a Virgo, you got something there, sun, moon, or rising. So I would still look at Saturn. I feel like Saturn being the square to this moon is saying, like, you know, you're seeing very clearly where karmic matters in relationships and support or lack of partner is impacting something going on with your home or your living situation, and also your work. And you're having to like level up and be more responsible. Well, the full moon is ruled by Mercury and it's in your 4th. Home and parenting things are an issue as well. So there can be a sense of being like, I got to be at work, but like I need somebody to help me with the kids. But, you know, my husband or my partner or my spouse is like unavailable. You know, they're out to lunch with Saturn and Neptune in the 7th. I've heard some horror stories of some people already that are like, I was supposed to be, you know, moving with my partner and we're engaged, and then I found out they had a drug problem and now I'm moving out of their house. It's like, oh, this could be quite literally, you know, some of the Mars, Saturn, Mercury, Neptune things where it's like there is like a record scratch and suddenly there's something changing with a living situation because there's problems in a relationship. Now on the flip side, right, I've also heard people that have said, I'm recently married. And I just recently got married and I'm in a committed relationship, Saturn. And now I'm having to host in-laws for the first time, or, you know, now I'm having to go and visit my my partner's family in another place, or, you know, I'm still adjusting and like learning how to do life with another person. I mean, that could be this as well. That could be this as well. Adjusting, flexibility, right? Oh, how fun. 9 of Swords. So not surprised with Mercury square Neptune, because I feel like there can be a sense of trying to adjust into a new space or a new situation and questioning, you know, whether or not something is going to work out. This can be bringing up anxiety, sleepless nights, overthinking, fears, nightmares, paranoia, and isolation. So when your chart ruler is in disharmony with other placements, we can see these things. You know, I caution you against like jumping to worst case scenario, because I think that the full moon in the 10th house is like about big changes in regards to your professional life or your status. But maybe this means that with these big changes means that there's a lot of fluctuation and changing with your emotions and being like, what's going to happen here? You know, is everything going to be okay? When you're dealing with the House of Swords, it's important to remember that stress and anxiety is something that, especially with the minors, like you have to move through and you have to kind of clear out. So maybe so much of the Mercury retrograde is like, you know, cleaning out the closet, going back home, you know, dealing with family stuff, you know, dealing with things where you have to move, and it's bringing up a lot of stuff for you and you're wondering if you're going to be able to move through it. So much of this will make sense in the next month as you start to see the Mercury retrograde energies kick in. So pay attention to this moon because it's going to have a big impact on relationships as well as your home. Good luck, guys. I've got Libra and Libra rising. You will be experiencing a full moon in the sign of Gemini in your natal 9th house. This is a fellow sister sign. So if you happen to be a Libra, sun, moon, or rising, 3, 4, 5 degrees, you'll be experiencing a trine. So that will be really positive for you. Trines are harmonious energy. It's going to help you relate to other people more. And a full moon in the 9th house is going to be bringing up the themes of beliefs, higher education, travel. These are all themes revolving around a full moon in the 9th house. And this is about balancing desire for exploration with the need for stability. Now, here's what's really interesting about this moon. So everybody's going to have the square to Saturn. So let's just get this out of the way. The square to Saturn in your 6th house Libra is about the daily grind. Saturn in your 1st house is taking care of pets, watering plants, dealing with stuff at work, maintaining your health, taking care of your daily routines and your responsibilities. Saturn can be about children. It can also be about romantic partners. Saturn can also be about home. So this is like a lot of like needing to make sure that you have all of your bases covered and you are practicing time management or really taking care of your health, or you're properly planning if you're going to be traveling or if you're going to be maybe starting a new educational path, and making time for it, quite honestly. I would also say you will be experiencing Saturn that will be going, Mercury that will be going retrograde from Capricorn back into Sagittarius. And this tells me that you're kind of reevaluating, or you're kind of thinking about moving or relocating. You might be going back and forth about like doing a move further away. And so I really feel like the Saturn square is saying, okay, you need to take that into consideration. How are you going to make the time for it? Like, you know, strategize and plan. Or sometimes with a full moon in the 9th house, you know, people are graduating or they're completing a degree or a program. So the square to Saturn is like, okay, now I got to get a job, right? I think that what's helpful is that it does trine your ascendant. We see Sagittarius energies that sextile your ascendant. But that square to Saturn is telling me you just may feel like you just don't have all the time to get everything done. You guys know I'm a full transparency astrologer. I'm a Libra rising. Saturn in my 6th house has been the biggest pain in the ass. I have literally had to go on every single trip with both of my dogs, right? First world problems. But I've got like a 100-pound lab mix and like a ferocious little French bulldog, and they could not be any more different. And so I think Saturn in the 6th house has been planning, getting everything together, packing everything up, trying to figure out where we're going, strategizing, you know, staying in places where we can have dogs, and also now experimenting with having somebody who has watched them and having to like plan everything out. So, I mean, you know, for some people, it's not going to be that. It could be trying to take time off work or dealing with a health-related matter or health of a family member that can be coming up as well, because you have this opposition to your 3rd house. So you might be planning road trips, you might be on the road. Keep in mind that there can be things that don't necessarily go according to plan. And at the time of this particular full moon, you're going to have Venus that's going to be hitting that eclipse point, coming into conjunction with the South Node. I'm wondering, do you have something planned at the end of November, but do you, oh, touch wood, do you end up getting sick? And you're like, oh, I'm supposed to go somewhere. Or, you know, I didn't schedule my time off. I have seen both of these things happen for me. So, literally booked a trip and then didn't realize that, yeah, that I had stuff scheduled. So that's how that works. All right, let's take a look. What do the cards say for you, Libra? I get the Hierophant. Okay. So, responsibility, I think of, tradition, and that's very Saturn as well. Spiritual wisdom, religious beliefs, tradition, conformity, education, knowledge. So making time to read more, making time to complete a program, making time to educate yourself on what's going on in the world. Really hard with Mercury square Neptune. Really hard also with Sun square Saturn. You might feel like there's just so much to do in so little time. And this is a card that deals with Taurus, so that there could be some assistance that's coming in from a Taurus in some way to work through some of this stuff, okay? But that's about commitment, responsibility. Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You will be experiencing a full moon in Gemini. This will be taking place around 4 degrees, so don't let this moon trick you. So when you have a full moon in the 8th house, here's the good news. You're comfortable with this energy, Scorpio, because you're a very 8th house kind of person. So the 8th house deals with like Pluto themes, shared resources, intimacy, transformation may be emphasized, balancing intellectual understanding and deeper emotional connections. This is the theme. Now, similar to Taurus, this is all about finances. So it's about your beliefs revolving around money and resources and values because it's hitting the 2nd and the 8th house. The 8th house deals with inheritance, taxes, your partner's money, some kind of big conclusion about a payment or money owed or something that you need to take care of or you need to wrap up because you're finishing something up during a full moon. Now, the ruler of this house is Mercury. You have Mercury that's in your 2nd. And it is in a square to Neptune. And we also have the moon that's in a square to Saturn. So Saturn seems to be the troublemaker, Neptune too, in this particular full moon for you. What do I see? I mean, I feel like people realize they have a bill that they didn't pay with this. People are trying to get their tax documents together with this placement, completing something in regards to a loan or applying for, you know, some kind of assistance. Gemini could literally be documents, especially insurance and things connected to your insurance rates. And then we see squares to Saturn and Neptune. So I'm just thinking of like some literal things that could happen. Taxes that are coming from, you know, or realizing that you're going to have to pay more on taxes this year because of some of your financial dealings and investments in your relations with the stock market. Insurance that suddenly goes up because now you've got a teenager that's driving. It could mean that you have to have a serious conversation with a romantic partner about vulnerability and how you're feeling and being open to some kind of change maybe in terms of your relationship. Saturn in the 5th is kind of like a buzzkill. It does have a feeling of like not having enough fun or not feeling lovable. And so I think that there's a lot of self-esteem stuff that comes up with this particular full moon and whether or not you're really feeling like, you know, okay, do I feel good enough? And that full moon in the 8th house can be somebody else who's like really reminding you of your value and like how, you know, lovable you are. These are financial houses, 2, 5, and the 8th house as well. So, you know, speculative or taking risks can lead to, you know, losses. 8th house can be losses. But it can also be, you know, I think the Mercury retrograde that's brewing in your 2nd house is re-evaluating, okay, how much money am I making? How much money can we make together? Or how much do I have? How much do I need to pay off? And then the squares to the 5th house is perhaps whether or not a new venture was a good move, whether it was a relationship, whether it was starting a business, like whatever, there's a sense of being like, okay, you know, how's it looking? Be mindful, Scorpio, that this Mercury retrograde is going to have you having to really look deeply at your finances. And I'm thinking about how Mercury is going to start in your 3rd and it's going to go into your 2nd. So fixing cars and car repair stuff can come up. Expenses relating to moving can come up. And there can be a sense of you really reevaluating because it's squaring Saturn. That's your traditional fourth house ruler. It's like, okay, weighing the options. Do I move? If I do move, you know, do I make this investment? Is it going to pay off? And you're going to have to really talk to somebody else and get some feedback from another person, you know, the eighth house, whether this is your bank or your partner, your business partner, your significant other. And all this energy is in conjuncting and quincunxing planets in your seventh, which means you're wanting to make money, you're wanting to drum stuff up, you're wanting to invest in something. And somebody else might be like, I don't really know about that, or I'm not as knowledgeable in that department. So yeah, there's gonna be something like that that's gonna happen. So be really careful on speculative things. When I look at like Saturn and Neptune in the fifth house, I feel like investing in a bar, probably not a good idea. Investing in some kind of foreign investment, probably not a good idea. Buying a really expensive piece of art, probably not a good idea. Right? I know, sorry guys, I gotta keep it real with you, especially because Venus is on the south node in your 12th house. So it does make me feel like there can be some upsets in relationships because you guys have a difference of opinion on something. And it seems to be either about communication, home life, maybe even children. There can be conversations about kids here. All right, let's take a look. The card that I get is the Four of Swords. Can you guys let me know what sword have we not pulled? I think we've pulled like 4 of them now. Four of Swords. So this is about rest, relaxation, meditation, solitude, gathering your thoughts, recuperation, retreat, and peace and self-protection. So the Four of Swords is rest and recuperation. I mean, sure, maybe you're spending a little bit of money to feel like you have more downtime and you're willing to say, I'm willing to pay for comfort, or I'm willing to pay for a vacation or for some time away. Okay, sure. But I also feel like this is quite literally, especially with the sun conjunct Mars and Mars in opposition to the moon, Scorpio, laying your weapon down. If you feel like you don't know enough about a subject, or you're not sure how you feel, like needing time to kind of think about it before you just make like a knee-jerk comment or investment, that's definitely a theme here. You're already feeling the sun and Mars come into a square with Saturn. So I want you to watch the days leading up to this particular event where you're like, you know, am I going to do it? I don't know. And then you practice some kind of like resistance, and that can definitely bring up flare up with another person. So think about it first. Obviously easier of the swords, but still this is about feeling like you need to take a break. Good luck. We've got Sag and Sag rising. What's going on, Sag? Oh boy. I look at this and I'm like, ah! So you're going to have a full moon that's going to be in Gemini. This is going to be in your 7th house of relationships. So this is going to be putting a focus on relationship issues and partnerships of all kinds. It can be clients. It can be relationships to siblings, right? Gemini. And balancing personal needs with the needs of others. Okay. So here's how this is going to go. If you are a Sagittarius, sun, moon, or rising, you know, that 3, 4, 5 degrees, please, please, please pay attention. Because this is going to be very personal for you, because the full moon will be directly in opposition to your sun and Mars. Sun and Mars in the 1st house is like, I'm going after what I want. See you later. Going on a trip. Need my alone time. Focusing on my goals. Really feeling like you're, passionate about what you want. Now, this can be good because, you know, through doing so, you can attract the right people. I've seen full moons where it's like, in this axis, that's like, you know, if you're really adamant about what you want, you're going after it, you know, you could have a chance encounter and you meet like that person that you end up being with forever, or you ask that person out, or you make that proposal to someone and it ends up, you know, being like a really great collaboration in some way. Anyway, so you see big completions revolving around relationships. The problem, and this is going to drive me crazy. This is going to drive me absolutely nuts. Let me go back. The problem is, Sag, is the square. Okay, so when you see, there we go. Okay, the problem is the square. So when you see the moon in opposition to the sun, that's just highlighting you and another person. But the Mars squares Saturn, which means, you know, you're wanting to have more fun, more romance, more creativity, more togetherness, but you feel stuck or homebound. You're wanting to focus more on you, but there is home and family obligations or property matters that are coming up. So Saturn is kind of like the Debbie Downer in this particular full moon. And then we've also got Mercury, which is in your sign, which is kind of like, here we go, let's go. And Mercury will retrograde in a square with Neptune over here. I feel like some Sagittarians are going to look at some home or living situations and they're going to go, it's fine, let's just move. And then you get somewhere and then you're like, oh, this doesn't look like the pictures, or I'm not sure if I like it. You might feel like you're lacking clarity about what you want when it comes to home or family and what's actually going to make you happy. And so this can come up very much so in a relationship where a partner's like, what do you want? You know, like what's going to make you happy? And you're like, I don't know. Certainly Saturn and Neptune in the 4th house can be some heavy emotions and some heavy moods. And I definitely think that this is about realizing that home is not necessarily a place. Home is where you are. So when you let go of this idea that home needs to feel or look a certain way, you're going to detach from the idea that that's going to make you happy, and you're going to allow yourself to focus more on maybe what your goals are, your relationship with other people. Now, quite literally, this could mean like you have an ending in a relationship and then you have to move. This could mean that you're going back and forth with a partner about, you know, what you want out of life and whether or not you see yourself getting married or settling down or committing. And you're like, no, I don't think so. I always want to live alone. And they're like, see you later. Communication issues are going to be a huge thing because communication rules partners and it also rules responsibilities. So there can be a sense of feeling like you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place with a home, family, or relationship situation. And you literally are going to need until the new year to work this out because you're going to see Mercury square Neptune several times where you're going to be like, well, could I live with them? I don't know. Do I want to give up my freedom? I'm not sure. Sag rising thoughts. And questioning whether or not you could see yourself living somewhere else or if you feel like you need more time to kind of suss it out and feel it out. So you're probably going to be feeling some pressure from other people, not just with the full moon, but because you're going to be seeing your 7th house lord in your 1st house, where there's a lot of back and forth about where you could go. So there can be this tendency of being like, yes, let's just run away. And then you realize you can't because you're stuck in a lease or you just bought a house or you're taking care of your mom. So it's kind of inhibiting you from being able to do that. Please take your time. And what's really lovely is that at least, you know, at least you're going to be seeing, you know, some positive aspects between Mercury and the North Node. And that does open you up very much so to the ability to focus on what's going to make you the happiest or what's going to provide the most adventure, what's going to give you the most opportunity for creativity. The card that I get is the 5 of Swords. This is like not a joke. This is real life right now. I hope somebody keeps score. Somebody let me know in the comments. 5 of Swords. By the way, swords, Mars, right? It can be air signs, but Mars is generally swords. Gemini, air sign. Sun, Mars. We're cutting this off. We're cutting this back. Conflict, disagreements, competitiveness, unfair defeat, winning at all costs, stress, hostility, aggression, bullying, and intimidation. I see a lot of projecting here with Mercury in the 1st house and Sun and Mars here where you're like, I'm not fighting, I'm just excited. And a partner's like, you're wackadoodle. And I feel like, yeah, difference of opinion, some kind of conflict or some kind of dilemma over, you know, perspectives and what direction you should be taking in regards to your home or your living situation or your relationship. And I think the Sun Mars just, it wants to be right. And I would say sometimes relationships are more important than being right. And so that's probably going to be the challenging thing is instead of arguing with somebody, do kind of lay your weapon down, right? And it can be with a sibling. It doesn't have to be with a partner. It could be with a sibling. It could be with a neighbor, right? Good luck, Sag. Let me know how that plays out. We got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You're going to be experiencing a full moon in Gemini. This will be taking place in your natal 6th house. And your 6th house is all about work-related matters. Health may come to a head, balancing routine tasks with the need for mental stimulation. 6th house is busy, so it's about getting things done, checking stuff off your to-do list. This is also about habits, your coworkers, and your pets. The moon rules the 7th house, so it's about relationships. So there can be some unexpected things coming up in relationships with others. And you got a loaded 12th house. So at this point in time, getting into Sag season, ton of planets in your 12th house. This is where you're kind of clearing everything out and kind of cycling everything before the Capricorn season that's going to begin where you have your birthday. So I think of like, man, 12th house Sag, it'd be great to be in a foreign country. It'd be great to be traveling. It would be great to be doing some retreat work or some spiritual work, because I think Mercury, Sun, and Mars in the 12th house really wants to be either studying, learning, or traveling here. But this feels restless to me. This feels challenges and dealing with inner frustration and trying to figure out how to find an outlet for it. I think about how this full moon is going to square Saturn, which is not going to be easy for you or Aquarius or Pisces. So I guess I'll just let you guys all know now, because Saturn's your chart ruler. So you, right, Saturn in the third, are the one who may be like fact-checking people or the voice of reason, or you might catch an error. You might have to sign something. You might have to speak up or initiate some kind of boundary or let somebody know what isn't working for you, what you do or do not have time for, what you do or do not have mental capacity for. Saturn and Pisces in the third. It's like, mentally, I can't do this. This isn't working. And full moons in the 6th house can bring up health matters. And so in this case, it's like Mercury is mental and it's in the 12th house in Sag. So it feels to me more like some of the stress coming from the fact that you're feeling like people aren't, going to stop reaching out to you, or they keep emailing you or texting you, or maybe you're like, hey, I need someone to talk to. And I just need someone to kind of help guide me and calm me down. Walking, journaling, prayer, meditation, these things will help big time during this full moon. But the 6th house isn't like escapism tendencies, which is what you want to do. And if you're doing too much escaping, drinking, drugging, partying, overspending, over traveling, whatever, you're going to find where it's going to be like, oh, this is having an impact on my health. I think like with Sun Mars being there, I've seen some Capricorn risings that are like, I'm really trying to stop smoking. And I think with like Sun and Mars in opposition to the moon, it's like this could be a good time to quit with the squares to Saturn. It's about finding like a newer habit to replace it with. And I would say like breath work can be really wonderful with Saturn in the 3rd house, learning how to, properly breathe. But yeah, there can be changes at work, changes with your schedule. There can also be a need to maintain vehicles here or fix gadgets here. And, Mercury also with that square to Neptune is like, some of you guys might look at things and go, well, I don't know what to say, so I'm not going to say anything at all. And Saturn here is really, for everybody, it's saying, no, you have to do your Saturn work. And so for you, I think it's having to, instead of ignoring things, like spelling it out and being like, this is when I'm available, this is when I'm not, or this is all that I have to say to you, creating that boundary, maybe. I also think about how Venus, which rules career, is coming back into the eclipse point. So it can be really bringing up some kind of significant connection to your career. Are you resigning? Are you telling somebody that, you need more, that you need better communication? Is there something going on about some kind of communication with work and coworkers? Possibly, right? Especially with the full moon in the 6th house. Some Capricorn risings might experience that there's layoffs and you're like, yeah, I don't know what to say or even think about that. I wasn't anticipating some people were going to go. That could happen, especially with Venus coming into contact with the South Node. I'm not saying it'll be you, but I'm saying that might be something you experience. And so that can impact your, your work routine or what department you're working in, or, something in regards to other people. Watch out for gossip in the workplace, because you got Mercury square Neptune. So this might be about people starting to be like, hey, did you hear about this, that, and the other? And I'd be like, I'm not going to participate in this, because there can be some rumors that are kind of going around with Venus conjunct the South Node. The card that I get is the 4 of Pentacles. Okay, so this is about what you're holding on to. Possessiveness, insecurity, saving money, conservative behaviors, investments, guarded, and long-term security. So I'm thinking like job security, right? It's like, well, do I feel like I am secure where I am? Yeah, but I think that right now, with all these energies in your 12th house, you're best kept keeping those thoughts to yourself, and I'd be careful about who you're sharing it with or who you're talking about that with at work, personally. And also, Saturn does rule money. So, I could see some of these squares where you're like, okay, is something going to pay off that I'm working on, or something that I'm doing? Is it going to provide for what it is that I need? You'll start feeling this early though. Same with a couple other signs. As soon as like the Sun and Mars start coming into a square with Saturn, right when Sagittarius season starts, that's when you want to really pay attention. because you're already feeling that circumstances outside of you are like pressuring you to speak up and say something, right? So this can be about, are you holding on too tight? When do you hold on, and when do you tell people what you think? But I think you're trying to be more reserved. All these planets in the 12th house, you're like, I'm trying not to pop. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. Good luck. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You will be experiencing a full moon in Gemini in your natal 5th house. In a fellow sister air sign, so you're going to be experiencing trines to your sun, moon, or rising if you are in that 3, 4, 5 degree Aquarius rising range. Now, full moon in the 5th house is all about creative pursuits, romantic endeavors. You're going to see big completions about things that you love and things that you've created. And it's about balancing self-expression with the need for intellectual stimulation, because you see the 5th house full moon is in opposition to all these planets in your 11th house of socializing. So this can be about receiving recognition from other people, loving you, connecting with people, going to parties, sharing something that you've been working on with the group. This can also be about connections, socially, and that there is like a pretty busy social schedule here with Sun and Mars in your 11th house, socializing with a partner, socializing with your children, and that all being in the 11th house of groups and community. These planets start to come into a square with Saturn and Neptune. So really it's kind of like, okay, there's a lot on the agenda. Timing wise, what can we actually make happen, right? Saturn is time. Saturn rules your chart, so you're going to be feeling the Saturn squares pretty significantly, but also financially. It's like, okay, here are all my goals. This is what I'm hoping to do. How much am I making? How much am I spending? And especially those of you guys who are either parents, or if you have, your own business, or, these are financial houses as well. So it can be about investments. It can be whether or not a investment that you made, if it paid off or not, right? So because Saturn is the focal point of this, there can be some challenges revolving around finances and whether or not you're meeting some of your financial goals, especially if you're working in collaboration with a group of people. You might feel like it's harder to hit timelines or find that you guys are sticking to budgets. But a full moon in the 5th house, still nevertheless, it's kind of like, okay, what's the results of what you've been working on? And I think this is about people giving you feedback. There can be a sense with Mercury square Neptune. I'd be really careful with, taking advice in terms of investments from friends. Like if you're, hanging out around Thanksgiving dinner and somebody says, buy this crypto. And you're like, I'm going to buy all these cryptos. And then you realize like, oh, it's crap. Something like that could happen. So be really careful about, friends or groups of people making recommendations, especially about things they don't really know about, Mercury square Neptune. Because the full moon in the 5th house can manifest as some kind of like big completion in regards to that. And you might feel like, man, this wasn't as like productive as I thought it was going to be. And you're going to see where maybe there was big risk, but maybe not necessarily as much reward. Now on the flip side, full moon on the 5th house, falling in love, hearing I love you, great for date nights, spending time with your kids. I think that this is about an awareness about not allowing money to make you feel complete. Not feeling like you can put a price on happiness, being mindful of how much you're spending when it comes to creative endeavors, hobbies, or children. And certainly full moons in the 5th house can definitely produce really magical times. And sometimes, people find out that they're pregnant with this full moon. So if you're trying, or if you're trying to expand your family, this can be happening here as well. All right, so let's take a look. Let's see. Oh, the card that I get for you is the Ace of Pentacles. Awesome card, especially with Saturn being in the 2nd house. I think that's about you being like really solid financially and like knowing your worth or protecting your assets, or, some opportunity for financial growth to kind of come in. That's really nice to see with the Saturn square. So new material offers, new jobs or promotions, opportunities, manifestation, resources, stability, and prosperity. In the back of my mind, I feel like that may be presented with this, but there is the potential for the details to still need to be negotiated. And I think that that's probably what's going to be happening when you get to the end of this year, as you start to see Mercury square. So it's like, okay, we need to get all the ducks in a row and make sure that we've agreed to the financial terms, this, that, and the other, so that way we can move forward with what this new potential investment or offer may potentially be. But also the 5th house can be about winning something, so some kind of gain. So you might be able to see that through the full moon also. Good luck, guys. Really glad to see that for you with Saturn being in your 2nd. We've got Pisces and Pisces rising. You will be experiencing a full moon in Gemini. This will be taking place in your natal 4th house. 4th house is all about your emotions tied to home, your family, your roots. And this is going to be emphasizing the balance between your private and your public life, because we have a stellium of planets in your 10th house of career in opposition to this full moon. Well, Pisces, you are really sitting on the throne of being the decision maker for the direction of where a lot of things are going to be going with your home and your career. So take that into consideration. Very 2 of Swords energy to me. Haven't even pulled a card yet. You know, when we have a full moon in the 4th house, we buy houses, sell houses, sign leases, we move, we go back home and visit family. We have big changes sometimes with our relatives, in particular aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings. But this can also be like finishing renovations or painting a room or decorating, you know, a guest room or setting up an Airbnb, right? Something like that. It could be a flex space because it's Gemini. And if you've been back and forth about making a decision about a living situation, you might be like, I'm going to make a decision, but then something might change. Now, the ruler obviously is Mercury, and Mercury's at the top part of your chart with the Sun and Mars, where it's a lot about work responsibility, putting yourself out there, your public image, what you're going after, what you're trying to create. And yeah, it's you know, square Neptune, which means that almost like work or authorities or your responsibilities out in the world are kind of dictating and kind of telling you like where you need to kind of get grounded more, or where you need to focus more on your responsibilities. Unfortunately, you know, all these planets in the 10th house, they're 10th to your sun. So they're all coming down on Saturn, which is about commitments and boundaries, and coming down on Neptune, which is about lack of. So when you have a full moon in the 4th house, it's like, you know, you're feeling kind of emotional and sensitive, and you're in your feelings about, you know, something that's going on with your home or your family situation. The full moon can represent something with a parent, but it is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury's in the 10th. So there can be a bit of like strife between living in 2 places, going back and forth, a situation with a parent or a relative that might live in another place. And you're kind of looking at things being like, do I really want to get involved in this? Do I want to help out? Now, Mercury also rules your relationships. So it could mean that, you know, your partner, if you are partnered, their family's going through a lot of changes, and the impact that it's having on you, as well as your home base. So something's kind of, you know, changing around here. Home and career, they affect each other very much so. But because Neptune and Saturn are the focal points of these squares, it means that you're both wanting to kind of create, you know, boundaries or commitments. Saturn's now direct in your 1st house, so you're very clear about what your non-negotiables are. But I think as planets are squaring Neptune, you're like, oh, I'm feeling, you know, victimized, or I'm feeling, you know, incapable or under the weather or limited from being able to make a decision about my home or my private life. And it's because I've got so much either going on with an authority figure or at work. Frustrating, because I know Mercury will retrograde here. So your goals revolving around what you want professionally or in your career will change. And what you'll realize probably through the next couple of months is that, you know, changing jobs, going back to old jobs, reevaluating what you believe about your career, a lot of it's going to be about working through your own blind spots and your own challenges in terms of your beliefs. And I think it's also going to be about, you know, really focusing on creating a life where you feel like you can have time for home, you know, relationships, yourself, like you can balance all of it. But right now it feels very imbalanced, right? So pay attention to where there's either too much lack or there's too much, not having clarity, you know, misunderstanding or self-undoing, right? Neptune can be that. There can be a sense of being like, well, people saying, well, you created this situation, and you're like, what? You know, how do I deal with this? And can make it really difficult for making decisions about home or work. dissatisfied kind of is the word that comes up for me. Saturn square, Sun and Mars, and also the Moon. It's like being like, well, I'm not thrilled with either situation. You know, it's like I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. I get the Ace of Wands, which is cool because this is a positive new beginning. It's a fresh start, and it can be a fresh start for your career, I think, because Sagittarius is the Wands. So maybe you're realizing like, look, something's got to change with me emotionally, or something's got to change at home. In order to do that, it means I got to take action. I got to get clear about what's not working, and I might start a new job. I might go back to school, right? I might focus on something that I'm much more passionate about, something that's going to give me more opportunity to be creative. When this card comes up, we see new projects, inspiration, feeling like there's more passion, opportunities, growth, potential, energy, and creative spark. Which is so true. Like when you see, when you see mutable squares, we have a T-square, we don't have a grand cross, but really you have to decide what you're willing to initiate right now, what you're willing to break through. If you're willing to set new intentions and go like, okay, this ended, on to the next thing, or I want to fulfill my goals in regards to home and career, that means I got to kind of make some sacrifices, or I need to juggle a couple of things to be able to find that balance. But it looks like you're going to have the capabilities and the wherewithal to do that. So much power within your career right now with Sun, Mars, Mercury in your 10th house. So really focus on showing up for your career right now. It is possible that you might be able to have both. Some people might be relocating for work or working from home, right? So look for those opportunities where you can. All right, guys. Well, I hope that was helpful for you in giving you the down low on this incoming full moon in Gemini. Let me know, is just as much of a clown world for you as it seems to me? Do you have these mutable squares? We'd love to hear from you. So if you have like a full moon in Gemini in your natal chart, or if you have a Mercury square Neptune in your natal chart, please give us your feedback to help some of us kind of move through these confusing times. When in doubt, meditate, right? Don't jump to conclusions. Really do your due diligence to look into your sources whenever there's news breaks and things that are coming out. And let's give ourselves until the new year to really see what is being illuminated with this particular full moon. I'll catch you guys all back here next time on Thursday. Until next time, I'll see all of you there. I'll see all of you very soon. Take care.